please shed some light on Israel? First question. Second question, did Nkrumah really die of cancer? Well, let's say in the second question that Nkrumah is dead. On the first question, the question of Israel now becomes a very important question. One we must deal with properly and understand correctly. Israel is an illegal, immoral, and unjust Zionist state. Illegal, immoral, and unjust. I say that it's an illegal, immoral, and unjust state because in 1916, Lord Balfour ceded the land to a group of Zionists. Lord Balfour, being a British imperialist, had no right to give the land of the Palestinian people to a handful of Zionists. In order for the Palestinian people to leave their land, they were driven off by the most barbaric and terroristic acts that man has ever seen, led by the Stern Gang. Yes. Since 1967, the world body, the United Nations, has been asking the unjust, immoral, illegal Zionist state of Israel to withdraw, and she has refused, defying worldwide opinion. I say it's an illegal, immoral, and unjust state because the land occupied by Zionism belonged to the people of Palestine. It's their land. And knowing that it's an illegal, immoral, and unjust state, I understand it cannot succeed. The just peoples of Palestine will get their land back. I have no alternative but to support the people of Palestine. I have no alternative but to fight against Israel. It's my enemy because it's occupying my land, Egypt. Egypt is in Africa. I am an African. That is my land. They must be pushed off my land, and they will be pushed off my land. The only two countries that support Israel are the United States of America and South. Yes.
Corollary to that, how do you plan to solve the problem of the refugees regaining the land in what's called Israel, and also how do you plan to deal with the 3.5 million people who are already there?
Well, justice is objective. And in order to deal with justice, we must be objective. There can be no sentimentality. Hitler killed 6 million Jews. Hitler lost the war. According to war, to the victors belong the spoil. Since Hitler lost the war, let the Jews take the land from Germany. Why come to Palestine when the Arabs have done nothing to you and take the land from the Arabs? Why? The taking of that land is for one reason and one reason only, an extension of imperialism. And so these 3.5 million people who are there to carry out the wishes of imperialism. I am totally, thoroughly, completely in thought, word, and action against imperialism. Those who support it, there is no sentimentality in my decision to destroy them.
Like a lot easier if the people of the world didn't destroy themselves over a piece of land and share it. Would you be able to be like, yeah, all Americans go back to Europe, then go back to Africa, and all of that. But if you look at it realistically, people are there, it's a lot easier if people can share the land.
All right. The question is, shouldn't it be better if the people share the land and live like brothers? Well, I have no disagreement with that, except that first the Palestinians must get the land back. Then they must decide what tradition and what type of system they want, and those who are on their land must live under their tradition, their culture, and their system. It is the only just solution. I will not let somebody come into my house, drive me out my house, and then later come back and tell me, well, you can come in the house and we can share the house together. No, you get out of my house first. I beg your pardon?
You want to do that for your cause.
No, well, Africa is my land. It's my house. It's my home. I've got to get it back, all of it. I've got to push the Portuguese into the sea in Mozambique and Angola. I've got to push them into the sea in Guinea-Bissau. I've got to push the European settlers in the south of my continent into the sea, and I've got to push those on the north of my continent into the sea. I don't see why you get excited. It's a question of what's just and what's unjust. Let's deal with what's just and what's unjust. Is it just for European Jews, Zionists, to take the land of the Palestinian people, to kick them off the land, to use terrorism, the worst means of terrorism, to drive 2 million people off the land within a short period of time so they can take the land under the lying slogans of a land without people for a people without land? Is that just? Huh? Oh, I know. You are saying that the land originally belongs to the Israelis. And your basis for that is the Bible, which is nothing but Jewish lyrical mythology and poetry.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades, friends, people I don't even like. It's the Center Podcast. I'm your host, DjPinHD. And it's a sad day. It's been a sad few days. Israel and Palestine are back at war. Hamas, the political party, I believe, on the side of the Palestinians, has launched an air in land and sea attack on Israelis, injuring and killing Israeli families, women, children, taking hostages. The news is flippantly reporting hundreds, but the Israeli government is saying dozens. I don't know what that's about. Nobody wants to see any Israelis hurt. I think that's why our hearts bleed so bad for the Palestinians sometimes. We understand that there is a brutal occupation of the Palestinian people in Palestine. And part of the problem is that while we want Jewish brothers and sisters to not feel persecuted and not feel like they have no place that can be a safe refuge where they can be free, it doesn't mean we want them to enact apartheid-like policies on human beings in other parts of the world. It is not right. And as a result, if you are so righteous, if you are so deeply morally religious as a Muslim man or woman, why kidnap children? Children. Why kill families? Why bomb innocent, simple events? Now, not everybody believes that that's what's going on. But from what I saw, it looks like children are being taken away in a truck. It looks like girls are being knocked unconscious and driven away with a truck full of men. Don't talk to me about your righteous judgment. If you hurting 5-year-olds, 2-year-olds, and you killing families on the highway, I understand it, but give me something truly to get behind. So this is the center podcast, not the left podcast, not the right podcast, the center. And not that we are moderate. That we want to get to the heart of the issue. We want to get to what the kernel of the center of the problem is, and we want to look at it and we want to talk about it. We're going to listen to both sides. But I don't see how this is a loss for everyone. Everyone. If you're a human being, this is a loss for all of us.
More than 700 Israelis are now feared dead after unprecedented attacks by Hamas militants. It represents the biggest loss of life in a single day in Israeli history. Hamas, which is designated as a terrorist organization by many Western governments, including the United Kingdom, is still holding out in parts of southern Israel where they're coming under attack by Israeli forces. And Israeli warplanes are now bombing the Gaza Strip, where more than 400 Palestinians are said to have been killed and more than 2,000 injured. And worry is also deepening over the shocking hostage-taking of more than 100 Israelis who are now said to have been taken to Gaza. Our first report tonight is from our defense correspondent, Jonathan Beale, who brings us all the latest. And I should warn you that in his report there are images that you may find distressing.
Israeli troops are still hunting down armed Palestinians. More than 30 hours after their biggest and bloodiest breakout from Gaza into Israel itself. One of the world's most advanced militaries, taken by surprise by Hamas, a militant group kept behind barriers that were supposed to stop this happening. Their attack as brutal as it was brazen. Hundreds killed. For Israel, that's included scores of unarmed civilians as well as soldiers. Already the largest loss of life in decades.
Now, guys, I want to provide some context because we do have to keep in mind this is the BBC. And the BBC in America are clearly allies to Israel. So the verbiage and the language is going to be slanted towards that, which is, to me, understandable. I just believe that I don't believe we should be gearing up and fomenting and stirring up ill feelings to further escalate the war.
Here,
That's
the
where I'm
bodies
at
of
with
an
it.
Israeli family shot dead, waiting to be identified and buried. Hamas has taken dozens of hostages too, like this 85-year-old grandmother, Yafa Adar, whisked away by militants in a golf cart. Families too, among them Yoni's wife and their 5- and 2-year-old daughters. He's left anxiously waiting for news and pleading for their safe return.
I want to ask of Hamas, don't hurt them. Don't hurt little children, don't hurt women. If you want me instead, I'm willing to come.
Israel's Prime Minister meeting.
So we have to call out the ugliness and the ignorance. This isn't a ridiculous conflict that has gotten out of control, and us as allies, instead of trying to de-escalate the situation, we have further militarized the Israeli government and completely turned a blind eye whilst they've done these things. keeping in mind that the IDF has a very, very robust and sophisticated intelligence community and system based on what friends I know are in the military and understand these things. And what I hear them saying is that there's no way that the Israeli government couldn't have known that this attack was coming, and that this might have been an opportunity for them to further escalate taking more land in Palestine. And God, in that, I hope that is just a crazy nut job conspiracy. It's conspiracy theory.
Developments from Israel and the Gaza Strip. Nothing really justifies the barbarism we've seen against those innocent civilians. But I do want to bring you a Palestinian viewpoint. Joining me live now is Palestinian National Initiative General Secretary Dr. Mustafa Barghouti, who is in Ramallah in the West Bank. It's important to point out that Mustafa is not affiliated with Hamas. Thanks so much for your time, Doctor. With all that said, what we are seeing in your part of the world is horrific. What is your view of things?
Well, first of all, I must say that we are against the killing of any civilian, whether Palestinian or Israeli. But what's happening is another cycle of confrontation that is a continuation of the root causes of the problem. And regardless of how much Palestinians are dehumanized and calling them animals, as the Israeli defense minister did, justifying war crimes against them, the reality is that 2.2 million people in Gaza Strip, 70% of them are refugees displaced from their homeland in 1948 by Israel, are now hostage to Israel. Israel is denying them food, denying them water, denying them medications, denying them electricity, and that is not the way one should treat civilians. As much as Israeli civilians should not be killed, also Palestinian civilians should not be killed. But the root problem of what we see today is the continuation of an illegal Israeli occupation, which has been there for 56 years. And that is too much. And this is the fifth war, or the sixth war on Gaza. Wars before did not solve the problem, and one more war will not solve the problem. I think what we need now is immediate de-escalation, immediate exchange of prisoners, so that all Israeli prisoners would come home and all Palestinian prisoners will be released, and then find a way of not only having a ceasefire, but solving the problem by ending the illegal Israeli occupation of Palestinian land.
Not a complex issue. That's the big thing. It's super simple. There's one group that has enormous power. It's the most powerful country in the Middle East. It's backed by the United States. It acts on another population of people with total impunity and is never held accountable for anything. So there's no symmetry in the relationship, period. And just as like a thought experiment, IDW people, if we know that if somehow a population of Jewish refugees ended up in West Bank and Gaza, and an Arabic government in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv had an open-air prison in Jewish Gaza, which they bombed with white phosphorus. They killed civilians indiscriminately, and they had no provisions for medicine. They had an embargo that blocked food, that electricity wasn't running, that there was an over 48% unemployment rate, life expectancy and malnutrition statistics were horrifying. One of the major policymakers in this hypothetical Arabic Palestinian state said, we need to put those Jews on a diet. In the West Bank, there was another Jewish area where there was a little bit more autonomy, but there was regular Arabic settlements where they pulled up the Jewish farmers' foods, they terrorized them with rocks, the security forces broke children's bones, and they couldn't drive on their own roads. We'd all have no problem understanding what that was. So there's nothing complex about it. The second part of your question, it's a pure asymmetry relationship. And the question is rights or not. So that's it. It's not complicated.
History for some media and politicians start when Israelis are killed. We know only too well that the messages about Israel's right to defend itself will be interpreted by Israel as license to kill, to pursue on the very path that led us here.
The death toll is rising on both sides, with more than 700 people confirmed dead. In Israel, nearly 500 Palestinians killed. Palestinians have already been displaced since the fighting began on Saturday. Joining us now is Palestinian-American Middle East analyst Omar Badar. Omar, appreciate your time. To start with the timing, I think the big question has been the surprise and how did this happen?
If you guys want to see a really good interview with Omar Badar, you should check out Bad Faith Podcast with Brianna Joy Gray. He lays out what's going on very extensively. Really good podcast to check out.
And how is Israel caught so off guard? But what's your sense in terms of the timing as why it happened now?
I think the timing is inherently random because otherwise it would not be a successful surprise attack. And I just want to mention that obviously what we've seen out of it has been absolutely horrific. I've been listening to your previous guests who are talking about not being able to find their children, and that's absolutely heartbreaking. I'm the father of 2 little children, and I can't imagine how I would feel if they were kidnapped and I did not know where they were. But the real scandal here is that this is every bit as horrific as it is predictable and preventable. A lot of people are talking about this as an intelligence failure, but I think there's a much more fundamental failure of common sense, that you can put millions of Palestinians under indefinite military occupation and a system of apartheid as recognized by every major human rights organization in the world, where Israel commits daily war crimes against Palestinians.
This is what everybody who has been on the side of this Israel-Palestine, who's been on the side of Palestine and this Israel-Palestine thing, this is what everybody has been talking about everybody talks about this. And why we have solidarity with Palestine, because we know they are occupied under a oppressive military regime.
Everywhere, land theft, lack of access to water, dropping bombs indiscriminately on civilian areas, and to think that this is a situation that's not going to eventually lead to an explosion is absolutely insane. This is absolutely predictable. We were obviously heading towards eventually a disaster of this kind, and now all of this direction towards further militarism and further violence is obviously not going to lead to anything better, because that is exactly the track that got us here. I think that is absolutely correct. We need a real, meaningful solution to the underlying injustice that drives this violence, and that has to mean that Palestinians get to live free of Israeli control and occupation.
Couple it all with the fact that Palestinians can't even leave if they wanted to. You guys, this is an extremely complex and heartbreaking issue. But let me fix myself. Not but. However, like Omar said, this is preventable. This can be fixed. Justice can actually come through what is going on right now, or we're gonna enable Israel to do more oppressive retaliation tactics and continue to wipe all the Palestinians out of the Gaza Strip so they can take that land too. Which is connected to Egypt, by the way. Guys, yeah, I hope and I pray. I hope and I will pray for peace. I will pray that the allies on both sides of these heartbreaking, they shooting out back. I will pray that both sides will come to a swift understanding of meaningful change and justice towards what has happened. Like, comment, and subscribe. We got up to like 69 followers. Thank you. We're trying to build a community of people who care about these issues. Only 3% of the people who watch my content have subscribed. So, if just like 10 of y'all who watch this, even if you've only been on YouTube like one time, which is hard to believe, just do a brother a favor. I'd appreciate it. So I can continue to bring you guys informative content like this because these are the issues that I do care about, and these are the things that people who are running should know about. They should know of the full context. They should understand that this is a complex issue, and they don't just go up there and just say, well, you know, they're our allies and I guess we need to support them. We need to inform our neighbors and our family and our friends about what's going on in real life out there. Don't be silent. These Palestinian people cannot speak for themselves. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't show them bombing Palestine for a specific reason. I can't. This happens every time they get into a beef, because Israel has all of the power. And if you are black in America, you kind of understand. And you should care. And you should inform yourself about this issue. They are building a cop city in Atlanta, y'all. Don't think none of it's connected. I appreciate you guys. Please subscribe to our brother's channel. We got to 69. Let's get on up to 150 so we can make that jump. Much love. I'm not going to say it's bleak today, because I will pray and I will hope for better. I hope you do too. Much love.